Good afternoon, guys. I'm back. I missed yesterday. I have a decent reason for missing yesterday. Um, yeah, I guess I'll explain. So the topic of this video would be more like my uh, work history slash current situation and work opportunities. But before I get into that, a few just minor updates, which I noticed I didn't talk about in my last video, so I guess I will talk about it now. In my last video, I did this in front of my bookshelf, which I meant to kind of highlight and talk about, but I totally forgot. So I'm going to take a moment to do that now. So this is my bookshelf. Do a brief up and down. There's that. And some game stuff on the bottom. So just a brief kind of explanation down here. I got mostly old video games, some specific DVDs, and some other random junk. As you guys can also notice, I have a lot of food product on my bookshelf. This kind of doubles up as my mini pantry. Can of corned beef hash. Very, very good. One of my favorites. Peanut butter and jelly, Fiber One bars, my personalized mug club for Coronado Brewing, arguably my most favorite beer, or my most favorite brewing company here in San Diego. That's one thing. But this shelf, behind my early fiction books I started reading when I first started learning how to read, behind these books are my general sociology books. So see if I can just make some space, which I thought I organized, but I guess I need to do better. These are books that once I kind of learned how to read, I'd get kind of in passing recommendations from my sociology professors, which a lot of them were good. Pedagogy of the Oppressed, that's a benchmark. Gustavo Gutierrez, Liberation Theology, that's pretty interesting stuff, although not radical enough for me. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. Lies my teacher told me, that's kind of cool. Kind of tidbit facts, not really put into context, but this is still interesting. Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Buddy Christian, I don't know if he's watching. I think I mentioned him numerous times now. He recommended this book. I read it. Very interesting history as far as hip hop and how it emerged throughout the '90s. What else? What else interesting? I guess that's enough there. Next, this shelf is my revolutionary literature. What does that mean exactly? Well, I guess there's no point in hiding it. Since you can see my book list, I'd classify myself as a socialist. International socialist to begin with. Not the Bernie Sanders type. Very classical Marxist. Leninism, if you will. I know there's a lot of bad connotations to it. We can talk about that maybe. But as you can see, a lot of things here. Black Jacobins. Revolution in Haiti. Revolt of the slaves there. Materialism is always kind of a sub-theme throughout socialist theory. So Lenin's materialism, imperial criticism, that's some dense shit right there. A duo book from two of my more influential professors, one Saccarelli and Lafta Verjarajan. Did I say that right? I don't know, we'll find out. A lot of Trotsky stuff, David North, Marx, obviously, Chinese Revolution, that. I go one more up. See if you can see that. This is my general politics book. So these are more, not really socialist literature, but like anything literature. Democracy in America, Alexis de Tocqueville. That's, general left, if you will. Would you call it right nowadays? At the time, it was left. Some of the standard things as far as American politics that would apply today. Axelrod's cooperation, evolution of cooperation. So like game theory basically put into literal politics. Anyone who studies American politics today as far as foreign policy would understand that there's it's almost despicable actually. But that's my perspective leaking out there. What else is interesting? Rule and Ruin. That's one perspective on how the Republican Party has kind of lost its way. One could make that argument with Trump. We'll see. What else is interesting here? Ooh, Alliance for Progress. This was interesting on a recent Latin American politics class that I had. This is more or less liberal economists trying to push forward liberal economic policy throughout Latin America. Um, Long story short, they had a lot of good intentions. The overall argument is they failed miserably. I guess some still make the argument though. What else? I think that's enough for there. This last shelf on top, I don't want to pick up my laptop, but I'll try to move things out of the way. It is my political philosophy. You can barely see it. I'll just read some of the titles. I read like 5. I talked about Leviathan. Montesquieu, the Persian Letters. That's revolutionary thought, like almost in its hiding, like sub-secret message, if you will. That's really cool stuff. Federalist Papers. Just because I'm into like socialist thing doesn't mean I'm like anti-American. If actually anything, there's a link to be made between the Enlightenment from the American Revolution to the French Revolution to the Russian Revolution. And there's a trend between revolutions, and it's more or less within the Enlightenment. And you can learn about the Enlightenment by reading a lot of the forefounders from the American Revolution. So Federalist Papers, Madison, Hamilton, and Jay. That's interesting. Edmund Burke, kind of the counter thought mentality against the Enlightenment. What else? Human Condition by Hannah Arendt. This is in the 50s as kind of entering the stage of postmodernism, but not quite, but kind of the early signs of it. Edward Said's Orientalism. That goes pretty deep. I could talk about that a lot, but I won't. Is that enough? Yeah. And then up at the very, very tippy top, you're not even going to bother mentioning it. It's more of my random literature stuff. Brave New World, Ready Player One, Fahrenheit 451, To Kill a Mockingbird, yada, yada, yada. Figured I'd show that off a bit. Hopefully I didn't take too long there. What else? I decided to wear this. I've been wearing this beanie lately when I go on my walks to help kind of increase my body temperature to get the most out of my walks. It's a nice little cool Hulk / Thor Ragnarok theme beanie, which I got from GoodWill for free. It was brand new. I washed it, of course, because there's some speculation that whether or not getting stuff at GoodWill is good. I didn't find an issue with it. It looks awesome. I think. I like it. Oh. I noticed when I reviewed my last video, I got a haircut. John did not cut my hair. Who did? My girlfriend did. This was definitely a team collaboration project, which took an hour, because she wasn't used to clippers, and I used to buzz my head every week, and so I'm familiar with using clippers and how things are supposed to sound. And since my clippers are a little old, I had to kind of walk her through like listening to tell if hair is being cut and the sizes and stuff like that. But she was just more or less my person that was holding the clippers and get that perspective on my head that I can't exactly see or would not get entirely just through mirrors. And it came out pretty good. I had to do a number of corrections, but it's not bad considering it's the first time she ever cut hair and the first time I ever tried to style my hair more than just the first time I ever styled my hair more than just say a 1 or a 2 all over. But yeah, it came not bad. Watch out, John. You have a competition. Now, initially what I had was when I was planning to make a video yesterday, I wanted to go over more COVID-19 stats, but then I realized, not that it's not important, but I'm sure many of us have had enough of listening to those stats. It's almost, again, like exhausting hearing these things and what to make of it. So when something else came up that took my attention away, that quickly fell. And I got a text from an old college friend of mine who she recently got a position in the San Diego County unemployment office and said, there's a spot opening up. And she goes, hey, my manager's looking for someone. I'm recommending you. And I'm like, I can't turn that down. So automatically the rest of my day yesterday, I dropped everything I was doing except for maybe a walk. I managed to squeeze in a walk between all the rain. Checking the weather's kind of nice. Like 2 hours, yeah, I'll get it out, which I did. but for the most part, I didn't realize it since, well, I did do job searching in the last couple of years. I guess my Microsoft Word and Excel expired or something. It just went out of date. I couldn't use it. So I literally had to figure out a way how to get a free or / very cheap version of Microsoft Word and Excel, get it down on my laptop, which I did have to jump through. I did have to jump through a couple loops to get done. I need to slow down. Talking really fast. I found a YouTube video. They have a couple links. Had to pay a small fee for hackers to crack serial number codes, but more or less I got it. So the reason why I did that is because I had to update my my resume, my cover letter, which I need to type, which I'm told specifically has to be 2 pages, and so obviously I can't do that without Excel. I mean, not getting Word, a new version of Microsoft Word, so I may as well get Excel in the process, because I use that quite often too. I stopped using it since it went out. But yeah, setting up an account with the website, doing all that stuff, fine-tuning my resume to specific wording. I'm sure any of you guys who job searching, applying, interviewing, stuff like that. So that's more or less been my major project of mine, because that's if I'm getting a good word put in, that's more or less how I've gotten most of the jobs. Not my biggest job, but recently how I got jobs is by people vouching. Sad to say, it's true. I mean, it's not like just your name or your qualification. I mean, yeah, your qualifications do count, but really, you want the edge over the top, you need that personal vouch. Otherwise, you're just going to go through a lot of things. And since my friend is vouching for me, I got to jump on that opportunity 200%. So, yeah. But anyways, so the main topic of this video is to kind of go over my work history, which I've been meaning to do. I need to explain a couple things. It kind of shows also who I am, where I kind of came from, so to speak. And it'll explain why I'm turning 35 and I still live at home, which there's a context behind that too. Not just that it is kind of a typical millennial still living at home, which is something else, but there's context to a lot of things. Hopefully we'll get into some of that. 10 minutes, let's do this. How are we going to do this? So, my first the first job I ever had where I got paid for something was I was a tutor for my high school. I put my name on a list at the counseling center in my high school, and parents would call asking for tutors, and the high school would dish out, like phone numbers, and people, it's kind of a long process, but you basically just, hey, here's a name, here's a list, or here's a list of names, here are the numbers, call them up and see if they work. If they don't work, just be honest with them, say, hey, I'm going to try someone else. And all you can really do is like, yeah, it won't work. I think I've tutored 3 people that way. That was kind of nice, because also I learned how to drive. So this is senior year high school, 2002, 2003. That for the first time actually making money. Although I was under the table, which is really nice. So, that was interesting. The next job I had after that was I was a scab at Vons. Forgive me, my politics now would not forgive me if I became a scab now, which I would never become. But I was a scab at Vons for about 2 weeks. It wasn't all that great. All I know is that I had a job to show up and I made money. Obviously, that didn't last very long, because once the strike was over, they just let us go. And I was like, since I was the last one on, I was the first one out, so, hey, whatever. But the first actual job where that turned into something big was SeaWorld. April Fool's 2004. This was coming on a time where I was actually getting kind of depressed, because I was submitting applications to a lot of these places. Obviously, I just fresh out of high school. I didn't know what I was doing. And I landed an interview at SeaWorld San Diego. Starting pay there back in 2004 was $7.25. Oh, small side story. The reason why I needed that job is because my dad had just bought me not my first car, but so I had my first car, my mom's Nissan Sentra, which, gosh, I miss that car a lot. Once that was gone, my dad bought me a Honda Del Sol, which I learned a lot with. It was a lot of heartache and tears and blood and sweat and all that good stuff in between, but that was a kind of impetus for me to do a lot of things. So I I got a speeding ticket, something ridiculous, like 80 and a 35. It was dumb. The cop was pretty sure he was being stereotypical because I had red hair at the time, and I was speeding along in this little Honda Civic that did have a body kit on it, and it was 3 different colors, but that's neither here nor there. Or maybe it was some part of the thing. And he marked me down as an 80 to 35. Obviously, there's a maximum fine there of about somewhere around $350. While I did win that fight for various reasons, which that's not relevant to this story, how I won the details on how that fight was won is I still needed to front the cash. I didn't have a job, so I had to get a job to front the cash. My first paycheck at $7.25 an hour wasn't even enough to cover that speeding ticket. So I had to work technically up to 4 weeks because it was bi-weekly paycheck. I had to work a month, literally. I'm not like a whole month, but like 20 hours a week for a month to muster up enough cash to at least front the cash for the speeding ticket, and then I got the money back. Anyways, by that time, I was already kind of knee-deep in SeaWorld, and I was like, well, I may as well stay along. Bottom rung at SeaWorld, I was a cashier. I was a line server. I was just your run-of-the-mill person busting tables, moving crap around the kitchen, being kicked around like a grunt. Which after about a year, the company at the time was was on the upcoming. When I had applied for a lead position, I was one of 27 candidates, one of 43 candidates for 27 positions. That's pretty good. Basically, I mean, respectfully, show up, do your job, don't screw up, don't mouth off to the managers. You're likely to get a spot. That more or less kind of repeated itself to a supervisor position, which I was one of 8 people for 7 spots. And ironically, the one guy who didn't get it, he retracted his application. So we were all promised spots essentially. That's something else. I think where it got kind of serious is after about 3 years in. I'm not going to calculate the math. I was offered a full-time spot. And that's where things got a little more serious for me as a person. I think I was 20, 21 at the time. I wasn't too conscious about a lot of things, but suddenly here I am faced with, what do I do? Okay, now I have a pension that's in the works. It's not a lot because I barely started working there. I had to deal with the 401k. I had to deal with health benefits. I had to learn all these things, and I was kind of being exposed to these things. In that sense, that kind of gave me a new motivation to kind of stay at SeaWorld, to kind of keep working at SeaWorld, to work harder at SeaWorld, to give me more of a context, a bigger picture of how to do things. Now, I'm not saying I agreed with SeaWorld entirely, but there's that motivation when you have all those things to work for. I was exposed to that, and I ended up doing that for another. So year 1 I was a regular, year 2 I made lead, year 3 I made part-time supervisor, which, by the way, lead, okay, starting with $7.25, lead was $9.45 or something, soup was $15.50. Full-time, there wasn't a pay increase, but more of a guarantee of 40 hours, as opposed to part-time, which is 8 to 25 or something like that. But even then, the hourly rule wasn't enforced, so I often got 40, but I didn't always. It was kind of nice. The mandatory 40, where it got a little tricky because you had to use benefit time. Anyways, by year 5, 6, full time, and then yeah. So I was full time soup, doing all these things. That's where kind of the elements of corporate America really sunk in with me, between bosses that don't like you, and not that my managers hated me per se, but the head honchos above them didn't think too highly of me. And then obviously I was still a bit stubborn in a lot of the things I did. And so while my managers would defend me, they could only defend me to a certain point because I was still being kind of a rude person, or kind of just stubborn in general. Anyways, I've learned in that sense. I did that for a total of 14 years, all the way until 2018. So 2004 to 2018. Yeah, 14 years. I was going to talk about, there's a little interjection of school, but I'll leave that. So 2018, 2 years ago, there's a breaking point. I'm in the master's program by then. But the way the company is going, this is after Blackfish, and SeaWorld took a lot of heat for that, and the company didn't respond like they probably should have. And on top of that, PETA, who kind of the sponsors of Blackfish, planned it just right that when SeaWorld went public, they went to the stock markets, aka speculations, price speculation as far as shares. SeaWorld went public 1 month, like I don't know what month, but on a certain month. Blackfish came out 3 months later. The projected price of SeaWorld shares went from like 35, which wasn't too, I mean, it was decent. I think when SeaWorld was owned by Anheuser-Busch, the parks were, or Anheuser-Busch was more valued at about $7 a share. When Anheuser-Busch got bought out, the parks were sold off in their own thing. They became public. They were rated about $35 a share, which is not too bad considering where they came from. But that's a whole different thing. Once Blackfish had, I guess where I'm getting at is, within a matter of 3 months, SeaWorld shares were down to $11 at some point. That sucks. The company lost half its value. Things definitely went downhill fast. The last 2 years I was at SeaWorld, I think I had survived around about 6 layoffs. It's not a good feeling when there's like, I'm forgetting what they call it, but there are those ominous days where they know layoffs are happening, and they're just basically waiting for you to get called in, and then they're gonna come in, shake hands, and then escort you out. The last round of layoff that I was there for, things were so demoralizing that me and a number of the other soups, who eventually end up leaving, we'd come in and we joked like, "Hey, what'd you bring today?" "Nothing but my truck keys," because we're expecting to get laid off, and surprisingly, not like. A lot of us never did end up getting laid off. Although a lot of us did end up quitting, which is what I did. So March 2018, my manager, bless his soul, I won't mention his name, he tries so hard, but I'll just say he tries so hard. But this guy was not meant to deal with a lot of stress, and on top of that, me being the kind of rogue person that I am as far as the higher ups, I was being targeted. He defended me to no end, but even then he couldn't do it, and he again had the stresses, and I was like, I had it. Like I saw where the company was doing. I saw how projections versus staff were just going to shit, and yet they still wanted to do all these things, and I just dipped. But there's also, again, that side caveat that actually the semester in which I quit, which was spring 2008, the semester before that, I had almost dropped out of the master's program at SDSU because I was trying to make a decision of, since the company was requiring more hours of me throughout the week, I was coming to the point where I had to make a decision where, do I want to focus on the MA program, or do I want to keep working at SeaWorld? SeaWorld was essentially my lifeline. Up until the point, I was able to buy a truck with that income. I was able to save up a lot of money for that income. I was able to get into to the grad program, pay off most of my grad program. I was able to get my undergraduate with zero debt because of the money I made from SeaWorld. Obviously, I was still living at home. That's kind of slicing hair, so to speak. But 2018, I made the decision. Zaccarelli, again, one of my more influential professors, he said, look, you effed up. You borderline dropped out, but you got to get back in there. And so that's what I did. And the first class I had back was Abdul Noors, which I was re-inspired to get back into the whole college field. And I said, you know what? I don't know why I thought about dropping out. And I said, I'm back in this grad program, F SeaWorld. And on top of that, I was getting sick of all that stuff that I was mentioning before, as far as the manager and the hours and whatever. And I had made the calculations, and I said, hey, as long as I can get some sort of run-of-the-mill job, I can manage. I'll finish up the grad program. I can skate by with cash, some, petty cash. I wouldn't make a lot of money, but I could skate by, which is essentially what I did. I had a few more bumps along the way. Like, I had a semester off because I thought I was going to graduate, but I didn't, so that costed me a little bit extra. My spending habits had to be curbed because for 14 years I was fairly laissez-faire as far as spending because I had decent amount of money. Not great, but granted my living conditions, I would afford Starbucks 4 or 5 times a week. I drive the Tacoma and I put a lot of money in that thing. I was able to do a lot of things with the Del Sol, like rip it apart, build it back up together, and that's a lot of money into there. And quitting SeaWorld, I had to curb a lot of those things, and so essentially I was humbled, and also humbled in the fact that, okay, so I took about a month off before I applied for another job, which my first job since SeaWorld was Burlington Coat Factory. I had a friend who I played Pokemon Go with, which is another thing. I pouring money into this Pokemon Go. $20 a week, sometimes more if I was really hardcore. Not to mention the gas that I did to drive around. We set up. I'm gonna skip all that. Pokemon Go was pretty big, at least for me. Had to let that go. But okay, back to Burlington. So I scored a job at Burlington, minimum wage $11.50 an hour. Now I'm going from someone who was full time, just under $20 an hour, guaranteed 40 hours a week, to 16 hours a week at $11.50. That summer, I picked up a second job as well at Nordstroms, which I had earned a temporary spot, because of my last name, because apparently my uncle worked there, which I didn't know about. But the guy who interviewed me, he was like, hey, you're so-and-so's nephew. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Obviously, I got the spot. Wasn't able to keep it. I don't think any of us got kept that summer, actually, except for one person who had been in the company just out of the store for like 14 years. So she got priority. Everyone else was kind of SOL. But that summer of 2018, I deem it my summer of retail. I did receiving for Burlington in the mornings, 5 a.m. to whatever. And then in the afternoons, I did Nordstroms, which was their BOPIS thing. It's basically a half online. The store, Nordstroms, is brick and mortar. Go in, you buy things. The other half is online shopping. And so I was considered under logistics. So I go around with this kind of phone, like iPad thing, and go around and pick up items and ship it out to people who order things online. And I did that for about a summer. I was working, Nordstroms was 40 hours a week for nearly 2 months, plus at least 20 I get from Burlington. So 60 hours a week? I don't know what else proving myself, but that's that. Almost half hour. I can ramble. This is what happens. I'm off the cuff. Okay. Wrap this up real quick. Ended up quitting Nordstroms. I didn't quit. I was let go. Seasonally released. That's fine. It was nice to have that time off because also school. I also got back up on school for the fall and in the spring. Hours also picked up at Burlington, so it kind of balanced out a little bit. I got more money, not as much as I wanted, but I had more free time. There's a slight balance there. Anyways, the summer and fall of 2019, I didn't go to school because I thought I was going to graduate. But then, at a last-minute audit, I realized I'd take one more class, so thus I had to take the spring of 2019. Is that right? Anyways, that fall of 2018. Oh, my timelines are all screwed up. No, summer and fall of 2019, I had picked up a job at GoodWill, which I talked about earlier. That was a decent balance, at least as far as the workload. I never got more than 4 or 5 hours at GoodWill, 5 days a week. And then Burlington, it was a nice balance. That and the fact that GoodWill was just right here. I could come home for 3 hours and nap, and then, anyways, I quit that because comprehensive exams was a little more intense than I thought, and even though I was working like 9-10 hours a day between both jobs, reading was not high on motivation. It was more like sleep. But I ended up dropping that, and I think I talked about that in another video. But where does that leave me now? So I was officially awarded my MA on December 31st, 2019. Obviously, on and off, I was looking for jobs kind of in passing and whatever I took serious, or maybe even part-time jobs I thought might have worked. But for the sake of this video, which is getting really long, I applied for a federal spot in the municipality of Laguna Niguel. It's called a CIS, Customs Immigration Services, in Laguna Niguel. It's a little more bougie area, located just south of Santa Ana. I think the exit is like San Juan Capistrano, if you take the literal exit, but there's like another toll freeway you can take to get even closer. Anyways, that was really enticing. I'll spare the details, but although I'd have to commute very far, but me and the girlfriend moved farther north. I think we discussed Carlsbad. I was pushing for Oceanside. But it's a foot in the door to a federal position, which I can do a lateral transfer from after a couple years. Starting pay just for the BA was about $15 an hour. It's not great, but it's starting. Again, that's base pay. If they included the masters, it's $17, which again, it's not great, not what I made at SeaWorld, but again, it's foot in the door in the federal thing. The benefit, I feel like I could easily work 20 years somewhere. I'd rather it somewhere at a very promising place such as that. But to quickly wrap up, as I keep saying that, opportunity comes up for the unemployment office for San Diego County, and arguably the pay is a little bit better. I don't have to leave San Diego, and yeah, as you can see, the options there are fairly high. I'm crossing my fingers, nothing's set in stone. I applied for the Laguna spot as early as last year, July. The process takes anywhere from 6 months to a year. 6 months for the Laguna application, from the Laguna application, was in December, which I emailed them. They haven't had a response yet. Another 6 months is back in July. So technically, there's a lot of room for things to go wrong in that venue. That's why when I hear of this thing at the unemployment office for the county, I mean, granted the political situation going on, where just recently 6 million more people applied for unemployment in the country, like. That's just in the country. I mean, that's not even the kind of, I don't know what the expression is as far as just in San Diego, but I mean, obviously that's a huge increase. And so obviously there's a workload demand there, and I wouldn't mind picking up that spot. Anyways, that's mostly what I've been doing. That's what I did all yesterday and most of today. Brushing up my resume, recontacting my references, making sure they're still good, making sure I'm still good, kissing babies, shaking hands, if you will, with my references. And this will be the longest video I've ever done. If I have missed anything, I'll see if I can review it before I make a video on tomorrow or Saturday. I'll try to fill in those gaps. Maybe I should have waited on my bookshelf review. I don't know. Today was off the cuff. Yeah, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, I don't know. We'll see. Later, guys.